Thank you. So the meeting is being recorded. I understand you all probably got that announcement. We're officially starting the Sustainable Growth Subcabinet Public Forum, the second one for this year, as per our requirements to ensure that we have an opportunity to interact and update the public on the work of the subcabinet. And so we did have about 102 folks register to be part of the public meeting today, and those folks are all listed under the attendees. Welcome, those of you that have chosen to join us this morning on this rainy Friday, wherever you may be at, to join and get an update and hear what's going on with the Sustainable Growth Subcabinet. So welcome to everyone there. I'll also make it, I'll probably announce this a couple of times, but for any of the public attendees, if you have a question, put it in the Q&A. The subcabinet will be able to view those, and if it works for us to be able to integrate that into our updates and presentations, we'll do that. But please be assured all of those Q&A submittals will be circulated to the subcabinet and be something that we will review as a subcabinet. Also to sort of hear what folks have on their mind. Virtual is always challenging, but we're doing our best to ensure we have an opportunity to hear from everybody and to update you on the work. So with that, I am going to get rolling. Maggie, if you can go to the next slide. So, oops. Okay, there we go. So we're going to do a quick roll call. We have a few highlights about the specific work, direct work of the subcabinet and highlights from 2025, and then we will have agency updates. The order of the agencies is listed here with the one exception that we are going to bounce MDA to the top and hear from Secretary Kirk's, I'm sorry, not Kurtz, Addicks first, and do want to welcome all of the agencies that are able to join us for today. I think we have almost 100% participation from the agencies. So with that, let's go to the next slide. And Maggie Courier with MDP, who's our sustainable growth specialist and wears many hats, is running today's presentation for us. So thank you, Maggie. Next slide. There we go. Members. Okay, I'm just going to go quick through. Everybody could just turn on their camera if you're with your agency, and just as I go through each agency, say who you are and let everybody know that you're with us. So starting with DHCD.
Secretary Jake Day here.
Great, thank you. Maryland Department of Agriculture.
Secretary Kevin Addicks here.
Thank you. And then we have DBM.
Good morning, Allison Verba. I'm the Assistant Director at the DBM Office of Capital Budgeting.
Great, thank you, Allison. Okay, next up is Commerce.
Hi, I'm Jim Palmer, representing Secretary Harry Coker.
Okay, thank you. Maryland Department of Emergency Management.
Hi, Mike Hinson here, representing Secretary Russell Strick.
Great, thank you. And then Maryland Department of Environment.
Deputy Secretary Suzanne Dorsey, representing Secretary Serena McElwain.
Wonderful, thank you. DGS.
Good morning. Wendy Napier, representing Secretary Atif Chaudhry.
Wonderful. Health. I think health is the one agency we do not have on. So if I'm wrong in that, let me know. But we'll go on to higher education.
Secretary Sanjay Rai is here. Good morning.
Wonderful, thank you. And labor. Ashley, you still with us? Okay, I know labor was with us earlier. Ashley Sharp may be joining the call as we move along. DNR.
Morning, Lee Snyder.
Thank you, Natalie. And MDOT.
Good morning, Jeff Anderson, representing Acting Secretary Samantha Biddle.
Thank you. MEA. Oops, Jen, turn your mic on.
Oops, sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. This is Jen Aosa, representing Acting Director Ian Ullman.
Okay, next up we have our DHCD Office of Neighborhood Revitalization.
Carol Gilbert here.
Wonderful. And then did anyone from the governor's office end up joining? I know they have other duties this morning. Busy morning. Okay. And then we have the National Center for Smart Growth.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Howell. Okay. Well, for those members of the public that are out there, please know that I don't think there's many places where you can see so many different agencies that come together for cross-agency coordination around this very important topic of sustainable growth. And we're thrilled to have the full participation that we have today. So with that, we're going to jump into our agenda. Next slide. Okay, we're going to basically move, did we go over to MDA first? If we can. Skip ahead and then back again later.
Secretary, if you'd like to go first, I've got 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, we got you up there, so you go ahead.
Well, we can be quick on this one. So among the many different aspects of the industry that we focus on throughout the year, urban agriculture is one that we are supporting and developing and trying to stand up because we realize that food needs to be grown where food is consumed. We also, with urban agriculture, look at the agricultural literacy side of it, where most of our citizens are a number of generations away from having grown something from just a familial, if not business, aspect. And so folks don't know where their food comes from. And so if we can get more food processing and production facilities stood up in places where there have been, for example, food deserts, or where there's just not a whole lot of that historical knowledge of growing food, all the better for just general societal reasons. But from a business standpoint, urban agriculture is really, really picking up. And so we've instituted through our budget, thank you to the Governor and General Assembly, our Urban Agriculture, Water, and Power Infrastructure Grant. So this, just think of where you would have urban agriculture. It might be a vacant lot or a park in an urban area, and you have to have water run to it. And so this helps to support the build out of that infrastructure, the water and the power. And then in October, we took a tour and brought with us some policymakers to a number of farms in Baltimore City and had a great time experiencing the diversity of operations. There was a vegetable and fruit operation. There was a learning farm, a teaching farm in a park, and there was a mushroom farm inside of a historic mill. And so just the diversity of what can occur is what gets us really excited. Some things that we learned in our roundtable with farmers that day was a need to expand farmers market opportunities, not only to support the community, but to give venues for these new farmers to sell their wares. And so Baltimore City, for example, there are 2 major farmers markets and a number of other smaller neighborhood-based markets. But how can we, from a concerted effort, working with other agencies in the state, help stand up more markets so that there is now a venue for that local farm to sell their products? It's not always opportune to have customers coming to the farm. So having the farmers market is a great opportunity. Farm to school opportunities are great. Always give a shout out to Caroline County for the work that they're doing to make sure that kids in their schools are getting the freshest, the most nutritious farm. So Beth Brewster and her team and the superintendent, kudos to them. And the teachers in Baltimore City, the farmers in Baltimore City are saying we need that too. And so we're supporting those efforts as well to connect farms to schools. Regulatory issues and challenges continue to be paramount, and I'll talk in a moment in response to a question that we received, Secretary Flora, about those regulatory challenges and what we're doing to overcome them. The single biggest issue that we hear about, not only in urban farms, but in urban suburban, rural suburban areas as well, is a challenge with land access. There's a lot of open land that would be perfect on which to farm, but it is owned by someone else, and it's making those connections to see how can we lease that land. In the cities, it very often is parkland, and it could be underdeveloped parkland, lots of green open space. And so how can we make those connections? And we're already doing it. Our team is helping out a number of new farmers. And Secretary, if I could go to the one question that was submitted. And
yes, that'd be great.
If that is, are we able to post the question in the chat so the folks can see? Or maybe not?
No, I don't think so. It came
Okay.
in through the registration comment.
So
Maggie may be able to do something there, but
I
we'll
can
see.
just frame it. The question was about agritourism as an asset in the state, and what is the state doing to connect the dots and to lift that that subsector of the industry up. When you think about what agritourism is, yes, there's farming behind it, but for all the reasons I mentioned before of giving a farmer a greater ability to expand their business, making a new product or bringing people on the farm to create that product. That could be a pick your own strawberry patch or pumpkin patch, or blackberry, raspberry. It could be making ice cream from your milk, whatever it might be. Agritourism is that connection with the public. Why do we love it? Not only the revenue to the farmer, the revenue to the state, the fact that it provides something for the public to do, the fact that it becomes something that counties and or jurisdictions can promote to businesses they're trying to recruit. Come to Frederick County, for example, and Frederick does this when they're in their pitch meetings with companies. Frederick has more wineries, breweries, distilleries, creameries, agritourism than anywhere in the state. Come here, your company, families will love it here. And so there's lots of reasons that we want to promote agritourism. I'll give a couple of points about what we're doing to overcome some of the challenges to agritourism. First and foremost, the governor in July, Secretary Flora, you were there. A number of our peers on here were at the executive order signing at Bordy Vineyards, which expanded and re-upped the governor's Intergovernmental Commission on Agriculture. And the point of that is to have a regular forum where when we see issues and our farmers see issues, because they sit on this commission as well, related to permitting or land use, zoning, planning, et cetera, they can elevate those issues, we can elevate those issues and make it a priority among our agencies to help us resolve. Very often ag becomes the squeaky wheel, but we don't necessarily have the ability to tweak the health laws on our own, to tweak the zoning laws on our own. We need a combination of industry partners and also our peers within the government apparatus. So that has been moving along. There is a public meeting component for all of our Governor's Interagency Commission meetings as well. We also have just completed a statewide guidance document on value-added agriculture and agritourism. It's been a year-long project, and what we have done through that is unearthed a lot of the challenges that we see still in jurisdictions and also in our peer agencies' interpretations. And that document is meant to be a guide on, okay, here are the things we've identified. Now we can move toward overcoming them. One of the key elements in this intergovernmental work right now is under the Maryland Department of Planning, which is leading the Permit Review Council. And of those key priority projects, and there are a number at any given time, at least one of them will be a rural or agricultural or value-added project. And I think we have internally discussed that they tend to be the most complex because it is not typically where development occurs. And so you're trying to do something on a farm and make it viable. And all of the regulations which are typically applied to commercial or industrial parking requirements, stormwater requirements, water requirements, et cetera, get put upon this small farm who's just trying to insert, the activity, dry herbs or whatever it might be. And so that council has been very, very, very helpful. I will say that give a shout out to our sister agencies, planning, Maryland Department of Health, Maryland Department of Environment, Labor, DHCD, and Commerce, of course, have been very, very helpful and supportive of trying to make sure that we've got a clear path. An agritourism operator who wants to open up has a clear path going forward. We're not there yet. There's a whole lot of work still to do. When you think about, and my closing comment in response to the comment is, when you think about all of the things that we can do as a state to tweak our economy for the better, helping these types of businesses is top of our list, because not only can we be growing more food, we can be selling more food, getting more food in distribution, but you're also bringing up the economy in the rural areas of the state, and you're creating a circular economy where that money stays here. And the whole flow, it's good for the economy, it's good for the ecology, it's great for commerce, it's great for revenue on the farm, great for conservation. So go agritourism. So with that, I will cede the floor back to Secretary Flora.
Thank you, Secretary Addix. Thanks for kicking us off. And yeah, so much in there. So we're going to go back to the top of the agenda now and update on the Sustainable Growth Subcabinet activity. To the members of the public that have joined, thank you again for being here. If you have comments or questions for the subcabinet, put them into the Q&A. And we may not get to all of them in the time that we have, but they will all be circulated with the full subcabinet. And make sure that they are aware of what you're thinking and what your thoughts are. So going back to, so the work of the subcabinet, actually we have statutory mandated type activity we have to do. And we want to be able to share that. There will also be our usual annual report that will come out regarding that. And I'm actually going to I want to make sure we have ample time for each of the agencies to report specifically. But as you may be aware, the Maryland the Beautiful Act Plan and Report that we work on and DNR and MDP and others work on together comes to the subcabinet for final approval as per statute. The Transit-Area Development Designation Criteria and Scoring, which MDOT works on, along with other agencies, comes to the subcabinet also. And so that was accomplished this year. Our Sustainable Growth Policy and Planning Principles and the Implementation Guide associated with that, you'll hear a little bit more about under MDP, but that is brought to the subcabinet so we can have this interagency coordinated effort. That's not a mandate. That's just an opportunity that we always welcome the agencies of the subcabinet to use it as a forum for sharing and all of the work that we're doing so that we can do it collaboratively. And then our comprehensive planning process and element revisions that we are going to be looking for in the next session are also part of what we try to ensure that the whole subcabinet is aware of. Next slide. In addition to that, any PFA exception comes to the subcabinet. And we also have sustainable community renewals that come here this year. As you can see on the statistics there, what we were able to move through in the way of exceptions. I really want to do a shout out to our Sustainable Growth Coordinating Committee that's chaired by Maryland Department of Planning Assistant Secretary Chuck Boyd. A lot of the work occurs within the Coordinating Council in terms of really looking at the details and then bringing it forward to the full subcabinet and the secretaries to consider and deliberate on the recommendations from that in these particular areas. Coast Smart Construction Program waivers also come through us, and then the sustainable community designations that DHCD works on comes through the subcabinet, and then of course the TOD designations. And so you can see based on the metrics there how many of those items came through the subcabinet. And I think the big thing that this shows is that a lot of this work is not, individual to one agency. It affects multiple areas, and it's great that we have this subcabinet and forum to discuss these cross-cutting type issues in areas. Next slide. So priority funding areas, I'm going to turn to Chuck Boyd to just give folks an update of how we're doing. This has been the primary metric we've used for many years. We'll be including more going forward. But Chuck, a few words about priority funding areas, and then I know we have a second slide on this.
Sure. Thank you, Secretary Flora. This map just shows you throughout Maryland where our priority funding areas. The priority funding areas are locally designated. These are typically existing municipalities, growth areas of the counties, and these are where, under state law, certain growth-related funding sources are targeted. And if you need to have a project outside of there is a process to go through, and those exceptions, which you referred to occasionally occur primarily for public health and safety reasons. Next slide. So on an annual basis, we report on the through these state agencies and their particular programs, their spending in and outside of PFAs. And so you could see from this slide that and this is a little bit misleading in terms of that, but a lot of the funding by these agencies is in fact inside the PFA. But because there are certain projects that are particularly in MDOT, large projects or large groups of projects that have area-wide benefit and don't have a specific location, they're taken out of that mix. And so almost 30% of the funding that's growth related, and MDOT can speak to these specifically, but these type of projects are often rolling stock. In other words, bus, rail car replacements along the way. So there's a capital investment in those areas that doesn't have a specific location. But most of the funding is in fact within PFAs, and there are rare occasions of an exception warranted that is outside of a PFA. And you can see that predominantly most of the funding is either in MDOT or in DHCD. There is an annual report that is posted on the Subcabinet's website if you want to view the full report. Thank you very much, Secretary.
Thank you, Chuck. Okay, on to our last slide of the updates on the Subcabinet, and then we'll go into the agencies. And this one is our Sustainable Growth Awards, and I'll let Maggie Courier, who's been leading that at MDP, share with folks this program that we've evolved over the last couple of years. Maggie?
Yeah, thank you, Secretary. So we're very excited to go into our second award season with the awards being hosted under the Sustainable Growth Cabinet. We retooled last year with a new category of policy, which has been really well received by our review panel as well as our audience after they got to see all of the really great awards that went out last year for that category. We have a webpage that you can view all of last year's winners on and their feature videos to learn more about what they were awarded for. And then we are very much looking forward to our spring ceremony this year that the planning has since commenced. So yeah, look out for that as well. And then our 27 season will start later next fall.
Great. Thanks, Maggie. Okay, so as you can all see out there in the public, we're very busy as a Subcabinet with all the things that we do collectively, but we also want to give you updates on specific areas of activity within each of the Subcabinet agencies and just give you a quick glimpse of that. So I'm going to be working through each of the agencies that have provided us with slides, and then we also are going to be adding DNR to that list also, who I believe has a few updates they want to share also. So we'll work through from the list. Since we did have go ahead and hear from MDA, I will just jump in. If you have been paying attention to sustainable growth in Maryland in the last year or so, you will know that we did get legislative approval for the Sustainable Growth Planning Principles, which have essentially become official in code as of October 1st, 2025. And so these are the principles that have now fully replaced what people may have previously known as the visions. The principles are moving forward the organizing framework for the 8 areas that we are all working around. as subcabinet agencies and for the state of Maryland to really measure sustainable growth in Maryland. And so those will be something to pay attention to moving forward. And in addition to it being incorporated into code, next slide, Maggie. We also developed a non-regulatory implementation guide. What we have felt is that there's important to be able to have guidance materials that allow us to stay up to date with best practices and move quicker than what code can move. And so this will be a way for users out there to have access to resources and materials that will help them in terms of implementation and interpretation and understanding what each of these principles are about, the benefits of them, the quantification of them, including metrics, and some of our own best case studies across Maryland of people that are doing great work around Maryland through case study examples. And we're going to continue to grow that database. There is a web page that you'll see here specific to the sustainable growth model and all of the resources that are continuing to be built out to support sustainable growth in Maryland, starting with the release just a week or so ago of the implementation guide and this new web page that's sponsored on the MDP website, but is the frame that we're using through all of this type of activity in the state of Maryland right now. So I do want to allow ample time for my sister agencies and colleagues. So I'm going to keep moving and we're just going to point you all to that website. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Anderson with MDOT to update you on what's been happening there on the sustainable growth front this year. Jeff.
Thank you, Secretary Flora. Great to be here. You can go to the next slide. I've got two quick things I'd like to update folks on. The first is a relatively packed graphic to talk about an effort we've had to answer a pretty straightforward question, and that is, how does MDOT prioritize what new capacity projects to add to the construction program and to add to the capital budget? So this has really been a project that is kind of in response to Governor Moore's commitment to being heart-led and data-driven. It's really led us to be kind of rethinking what the project development process is and how we prioritize projects within it, specifically focusing on the Chapter 30 scoring process. In thinking about that, our goals have really been to increase the transparency of the process, to make sure that we are really being, as Governor Moore said, data-driven and analytically focused, and thinking about which projects get us most effectively to our goals. We want to be fair in terms of the modes and the geographies that we're paying attention to in the project selection process. And of course, ultimately, we need to get the most bang for our buck out of project selection. This is, as I said, kind of a packed graphic, but it really, I think, helps to think about it in a couple basic steps. And the reason this is important is that I think this process has been relatively opaque, and we are really trying to make it much more transparent. So the best way to think about it is sort of, how do you get a feasibility study? Once you have that feasibility study, it goes into a project scoring process, which has been known as Chapter 30 and is one of the components that we're updating. And then there is a process for getting public input, and the secretary can make changes to projects that are selected. And that's what ultimately ends up in the capital budget. So kind of a three-step process of feasibility study to get basic information around a project, use that basic information to actually score it against state goals. And those goals are things like safety, access and mobility, environmental goals, equity goals, economic development, sustainable land use and transportation demand management. And then third part of that, really getting the public feedback and making any particular changes. So that's been a major effort that we've been undertaking over the last really year and a half. We've had internal working groups at MDOT working on that. We've done extensive outreach to a lot of stakeholders, particularly working with our colleagues in the counties. And we're excited about where this is headed. I think we've got a good process that we've identified, and that's going to be something that we are bringing into the legislature this year in the form of the Transportation Investment Priorities Act. So that's going to be a major focus for us over the coming session. The second thing I want to highlight for folks that we've been working on is, and you can go to the next slide for this, is our TOD work. And TOD, for those who don't know, transit-oriented development, really important work here in terms of just trying to make sure that we are maximizing the benefits from the infrastructure that we built, the transportation infrastructure we built. When we bring more development around transit stops, it gives people living there more opportunities to take alternate modes of transportation, to have a lot of transportation choices, and of course is also trying to aid our goals in getting more housing in the state. So we are making a big effort around TOD. Part of that is our TOD designation program. The program basically provides state recognition of local efforts to advance TOD. It unlocks, if you get a designation, it unlocks opportunities for state support, including MDOT's TOD capital grant and revolving loan fund. And we've issued more than $1 million through that program just this year. We've got 17 sites currently designated, and we essentially updated the new application process in June of 2024. Through that new process, we've had 3 new designations so far at Penn North, West Baltimore, and Monocacy, and have also expanded the boundaries around the Reisterstown Plaza station area. So that's been great progress. I think the TOD fund has been really positive in terms of getting people's attention and wanting to look for opportunities to designate new sites. So we've got 5 new sites in the pipeline right now. It's the program and the effort has, I think, led to a lot of really good information sharing between the states and locals. So it's enabled us to better understand sort of where we can coordinate both our efforts internally at MDOT and with sister agencies like DHCD, where we've managed to align the Sustainable Communities program with the TOD designations. I think really kind of highlighting the leverage we're trying to get through efforts like in the Growth Council. There are still challenges that we're working on, but we are, anxious to work with locals, anxious to work with the private sector to figure out really how to maximize the return on the investments we've made and are making in transit, and to bring people more transportation choices that way, more housing that way, and greater sustainability ultimately. So thanks for the opportunity to provide that update, and I will pass it back to Secretary Flora.
Great, thank you, Jeff, and really appreciate you providing that update too. And here's your email that you're putting out there. If anyone wants to contact Jeff and his team around TOD, feel free to reach out. And just for the members of the public, again, just want to remind you that if you do have questions, put it in the Q&A. Member agencies here are viewing those, and we may be able to integrate them into our presentations, but we will recirculate them to all of the members also post-event, so we can be aware of what you all are thinking out there. So next up, we have Maryland Department of Environment, and Deputy Secretary Suzanne Dorsey is going to be presenting on what's happening at FDE. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Secretary Flora. And on behalf of Secretary McElwain, I want to just start a little bit with her, one of her core messages, and that is that we can protect the environment without standing in the way of business growth. And that's why MDE continues to work closely with leaders and partners across other agencies and communities and in industry to together build a Maryland that is healthier, safer, and more affordable. So today I want to highlight our progress and accomplishments, but before I do that, I want to review how MDE's priorities connect to Secretary Flora's and this subcabinet's principles. So let's start with equity. First and foremost, MDE is committed to make sure that everyone has a seat at the table and no community is left behind. Secondly, we are reducing pollution and supporting green, energy efficient infrastructure. And we're building communities that can withstand the impact of climate change because it affects all of us. Sustainable growth and climate planning must be connected, and that's what we're doing. We're working smarter with local governments, private industry, and Maryland communities. It's important. It's essential. Next slide, please. So let's talk about what we've done this year. A lot of people don't realize this, but the Maryland Department of the Environment provides hundreds of millions of dollars each and every year to upgrade Maryland's water and wastewater facilities. We're modernizing our stormwater regulations to reduce flooding and manage runoff to protect communities. We're funding projects that particularly filter water so that pollution is reduced. This year, we introduced new regulations that also prioritize green infrastructure like tree plantings and local stormwater management, especially urban stormwater restoration projects that are both designed to protect communities from flooding, but also to filter that water before it makes its way downstream. So by continuing these strategic investments in water infrastructure and integrating these upgrades with stormwater and resilience planning, we can maximize the benefits for all communities across the states. We can advance clean transportation in addition to clean water. So we're doing this with supporting the transition to electric vehicles by providing EV infrastructure. And we've been doing a lot of outreach to communities to better understand what are the barriers associated with purchasing electric vehicles. And surprisingly, we found that it's not the cost, it's the range. People want more chargers, and we're delivering. The secretary was in Elton last week celebrating 8 new fast chargers on I-95. And that's thanks to a $63 million investment. Along with our sister agency, the Maryland Energy Administration, we've invested more than $16 million to support charging in low and moderate income communities. This is part of Maryland's commitment to providing reliable charging where it's needed most and building confidence for drivers to switch to electric. So together, we can protect communities, strengthen our economy, and ensure that Maryland grows more affordable, smarter, greener, and more resilient. So what's next? Next slide, please. As we look forward to 2026, we're continuing to build a cleaner, more affordable, more resilient Maryland. And our focus is crystal clear. We'll continue to engage with and empower communities to make sure that residents and our partners in choosing the solutions that affect their communities. And we'll continue to pursue these public-private partnerships to fund the projects that are chosen by communities. We'll implement building energy standards with strong stakeholder engagements to ensure that buildings and new developments cut pollution and deliver real benefits to communities while protecting businesses' bottom line. And finally, we're going to reduce flooding in partnership with local governments, sister agencies. We will strengthen stormwater systems and protect communities. So through these coordinated efforts, Maryland will grow smarter, greener, more resilient, and more affordable. Thank you, Secretary Flora.
Thank you, Suzanne. Appreciate it. Very, very great updates. Thank you. So next up, we have our Sustainable Growth Subcabinet Vice Chair, Secretary Jake Day, who is going to give you some updates on what's happening over at DHCD this past year and coming up. Secretary Day. Oops, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. As many of you know, Governor Wes Moore signed the Housing Starts Here executive order in September. This executive order was intended to supercharge affordable housing production by improving the use of state-owned land to create more efficient development, and also by reducing state permitting timelines and ultimately helping to bring homes to market faster. So I want to provide some updates on the progress we've made since September and what we're working on to accomplish the goals of that order. First of all, we've been working to establish housing targets, housing production targets as a part of the order. We are working on finalizing those targets. We've had a couple of public hearings on this, and we are on track to release those figures for each municipality and county by January 1. Second, the executive order created an ombudsman to assist housing projects through state permitting processes as well as local government permitting processes. And applications for that position are now closed. We anticipate making an offer to the candidate very soon and onboarding that candidate in early 2026. In addition, the order specifically charges the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development with accelerating its housing financing timelines, as well as several state agencies, Maryland Department of Transportation, Maryland Department of the Environment, and others, with instituting reforms to accelerate their permitting processes. And those are to be implemented by March 1, 2026. Plans from each of the agencies were due to the governor in November of this year. I believe all were submitted, and we are in the process, or the governor's office is in the process of reviewing while the agencies are busy implementing. Lastly, we're working on developing housing on state-owned land and accelerating funding for affordable housing through that process. DGS and DHCD are coordinating on putting together a list of potentially suitable properties, and we're currently scheduling meetings with other agencies to determine availability of those parcels and suitability of those parcels for housing. So we're incredibly thankful for the governor's attention on this issue and the partnerships with MDOT, MDE, DGS, and others for their collaboration. Additionally, during the 2026 legislative session, we'll be advancing a legislative agenda that builds on that momentum and addresses two of the biggest housing challenges facing Marylanders. So if we can jump to the next slide, please. The first of those is the Starter and Silver Homes Act of 2026. So between 2015 and 2022, the number of houses available for sale in Maryland decreased by 64%. As high interest rates locked out a new generation of home buyers. And this especially impacts young families and seniors the most. Since 2019, 9 in 10 newly cost-burdened homeowners have either been young adults entering the market or seniors aging in place. So if you think about the arc of a career, it's the 26-year-old coming out of mom and dad's house, wanting to buy a house of their own, but not being able to find anything on the market that's affordable. And it's also that senior empty nester who has more house than they need, more house than they want and can afford and take care of, and not having any alternative to move into. And one affects the other. Our legislation proposes several actions to increase housing options by allowing smaller and more affordable homes in every jurisdiction of the state. It would, one, allow smaller single-family homes on smaller lots. Local governments create mandates for larger homes in a variety of ways. They have minimum lot sizes and minimum home dimensions written into code. Removing these mandates for large homes in areas served by public water and sewer systems makes it possible for smaller homes to be built that are less expensive for Maryland families without impacting conserved areas and sensitive areas. Second, it would allow townhomes in residential areas statewide. Single-family detached homes are the most expensive kind of housing. Allowing townhomes in residential areas statewide will directly create a home ownership options that meet the needs of young families and seniors who want to age in their existing neighborhoods. A townhome built at the same square footage today in Maryland is on average 30% cheaper than a single-family detached home. And it would make it easier to split up parcels of land to build more homes. So improving the process to turn large parcels of land in these areas that are already served by public water and sewer that are intended for growth into smaller parcels will complement allowing smaller homes and allowing townhomes. These reforms would allow Maryland to join in already promising national trends that other states are leading on for increasing home affordability instead of being left behind. The median size of a new single-family home nationwide declined for the third straight year in 2024, and this is a new trend. It had been rising for a generation, and this coincides with the price of new single-family homes falling year over year. The production of townhomes nationwide has also increased 59% since 2019. And creating new housing options that are, on average, like I said, 30% less than existing housing stock, than existing homes, and then single-family detached homes will unlock home ownership opportunities for more Maryland families. Finally, we've got the Housing Certainty Act of 2026. If you don't mind jumping to the next slide. Thank you. We have two great sponsors for this bill, Senator Malcolm Augustine and Delegate Dylan Baylor. So this is a private sponsor bill, unlike the first bill, which is a departmental piece of legislation. This bill acknowledges that local regulatory uncertainty, delays, and impact fees increase the cost of building housing, resulting in less housing, higher costs for Marylanders. As many of you know, Maryland is a late vesting state. This was a topic of conversation last session. That means that local jurisdictions can change land use rules and requirements for housing development projects after they're approved by the jurisdiction, all the way up until visible construction commences, meaning that housing killing regulatory changes can be made even after permits or approvals have been granted for projects that were in total compliance with local laws at the time of initiation. Frankly, if we did this with anything else, we would say, well, that's unfair. That's not business. That's not just not business friendly. That's not fair. Government shouldn't do business that way on any policy topic. But look, let's be honest. The reason this exists is it's intended to allow the opportunity to kill projects that are already approved. This bill would do three things. It would increase certainty by locking in local regulations at the time that a housing development project is substantially submitted, meaning a substantially complete application, not just a sketch on a piece of paper, but a true application is submitted so that the project is reviewed under those consistent sets of standards. Second, it would allow applicants for housing building permits to use qualified, neutral, third-party reviewers that are approved by the local government to avoid delays. This also helps with adding capacity without having to add cost burden. And it would defer the collection, of development impact fees and excise taxes until after construction is complete, which reduces upfront expenses and carrying costs to make housing construction more affordable and ultimately bring down those costs of a total housing project. And that will translate ultimately to lower rents and lower sale prices for Marylanders. So this suite of activities, both the executive action that the governor's taken and the two pieces of housing legislation that we are advancing this year, alongside of the great work being done by other agencies that you'll hear from here today, I think will continue to help make Maryland a more affordable place to build and a more affordable place to live.
Wonderful. Thank you, Secretary Day. Appreciate it. To members of the public, just another public announcement. We are recording this presentation, and the slides themselves will be posted on the Sustainable Growth Subcabinet webpage, and we are also monitoring what's in the Q&A, and if we don't get to respond to those, which looks like we will be tight on time, we will make sure that we post those also on that Sustainable Growth Subcabinet webpage. I am going to give people a heads up. We may go a little over to make sure we get all of this great work that's going on, that we get through all of those presentations. And so with that, next, I want to go to MEA, and we have Jen Aosa, Deputy Secretary, who is going to share with us what's going on over there related to sustainable growth. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Secretary Flora. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. So for those who may not be familiar, the Maryland Energy Administration promotes clean, reliable, and affordable energy and energy-related greenhouse gas reductions to benefit Marylanders in a just and equitable way. We do this primarily in two ways. One, by developing and helping to implement progressive energy policies, but also in our stewardship of the state's Strategic Energy Investment Fund, which couples funding from the Renewable Portfolio Standard Alternative Compliance payments and auction proceeds from the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. We know that energy has been a bit of a hot topic lately because too many Marylanders are seeing their energy costs rise. I'm very pleased to say that just this morning, Governor Moore was signing an executive order that is really focusing on making energy more affordable, more reliable, and holding our utility companies more accountable to the residents that they serve. What I wanted to highlight today are just a couple of the programs that the Maryland Energy Administration is administering in this current fiscal year. The first one is really focused on how we can help local governments modernize their infrastructure and their energy use. This was bolstered by an additional $50 million that Governor Moore made available to MEA. And it is being allocated to counties and municipalities for planning activities for renewable energy on rooftops, solar canopies, and solar energy on landfills. Another $10 million for energy efficiency projects in local government-owned buildings. This could be libraries, recreation centers, and the like. And then $4 million for cost-effective electrification projects. The application period just closed about 2 weeks ago, and we are already working our way through what was a really robust set of applications. So we're expecting to make those awards to local governments in the spring of 2026. Next slide, please. Because the governor is so particularly focused on how energy is disproportionately burdening some of those Marylanders that are least able to afford it, I wanted to highlight two additional programs that the Maryland Energy Administration is administering this year. The first is our Community Solar Low to Moderate Income Power Purchase Agreement Grant Program. And while that's a mouthful, what this basically does is provide funding to incentivize community solar that benefits low to moderate income households, and provides an additional incentive for community solar development on landfills and brownfields. So these are often within our communities, maybe underutilized land. And what the community solar program does is make solar energy available to those who may not own their own homes, who may rent, or who may live in multifamily buildings. But every award associated with this community solar program has to include a calculation of savings for the low to moderate income subscribers. The second program that is focused on low to moderate income Marylanders is our Residential Energy Equity Program. This program provides funding for cost-effective energy efficiency and solar energy programs that serve low to moderate single-family and multifamily residential buildings. Because we're seeing energy costs increase, we were able to increase the amount of funding through the Strategic Energy Investment Fund to apply to these programs, and we're seeing robust interest in these programs as well. We have a full suite of programs for 2026, many that are still accepting applications, but all of that information can be found on our website, which is energy.maryland.gov. And with that, I'm happy to turn it back over to Secretary Flora. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen and MEA. Appreciate sharing all of that great information. And we've just got so much to share. I'm going to keep us rolling and note with the public. I hope you'll be able to stay with us because we probably are going to go about 15 minutes over to make sure we can share with you all these great updates from our agencies with the subcabinet. So I'm going to go next to MDEM, and our state resiliency officer, Mike Henson, is going to give you an update on what's happening there.
Yes, thank you, Secretary Flora. Everybody.
It's a little, yeah, audio is a little rough, Mike, but we'll go to your first slide and get to that next one and then let you try that again.
All right, how are we doing now? Any better?
Better.
Okay. All right. So for those who don't know, the Maryland Department of Emergency Management not only coordinates with all the state agencies on disaster situations and high-profile events for the planning and response to those, but also administers quite a few number of programs from FEMA, not only the state, but also to all the local governments across the state. So just want everybody to have that focus in mind as I work my way through the slides. I just want to check in again. Can you still hear me okay, Secretary?
It's audible. It's not great, but it's audible. So keep going.
So anyway, the Office of Resilience was started just a couple years ago and is housed in the Maryland Department of Emergency Management. The Office of Resilience, one of the main things that they were charged with was creating a statewide resilience strategy. We are almost at the tail end of that process now. It is basically done as far as content's concerned and is really just in final design and approvals. So you can look for that to be out in early 2026. With that, we looked across 22 independent state agencies at the 5 sectors that you see on this slide here on the screen, which include housing, environment and natural systems, community and local government capacity, food systems, and critical infrastructure. We wanted to take a summary of all the existing programs, which was really important. Just because this office is relatively new does not mean resilience is new. As you've heard from Secretary Flora and MDE and others on this call, you've heard the word resilience a lot. There's a lot happening in the state already. We are a leader in resilience across the country. So we needed to give credit where credit was due and figure out where all the existing resilience programs were. So we're able to do that and have a summary of what those things were across state government. From there, we needed to come up with 2, 5, and 10-year recommendations. So those will be in there. And all the recommendations, there's essentially 20 goals and 50 individual recommendations. Every one of them has an owner, a timeline, and a proposed budget attached to it, if possible. And then the last thing that'll be in there also are big ideas and open questions. We realize there are some for factors that are within our control and aren't within our control. There are some real open questions right now as far as what projects can move forward, what funding may be available, et cetera. So we wanted to make sure that we took note of those things that couldn't be directly answered right now so that they don't fall through the cracks. And our annual review process will be able to continue to push those issues forward so they can finally make it. Next slide. State hazard mitigation plan. These are required by the federal government every 5 years, and they're a requirement for a number of funds, mostly around hazard mitigation funding and pre-disaster mitigation funding, but they have other benefits as well. With that, we are having our current plan expire in 2026. We are already in the middle of the process of updating that so that we can have a new approval before that expires, like I said, in 2026. That is really important statewide document because not only is it important for us for the funding portion that I mentioned, but a lot of the information collected for that is then used by local jurisdictions for their requirements plans as well. So that is through the process. And if you just Google Maryland mitigation or hazard mitigation plan, you'll come up on an open dashboard that is progress of that plan throughout the state and gives a better overview of what that looks like and opportunities for public input in the state and local process for these planning efforts. Next slide. And lastly, I wish I had more to report on this slide, but I do not. For those who haven't been paying attention, the FEMA Review Council was supposed to meet last week and provide their findings. Unfortunately, that after start. And so we don't have a really good understanding of where the FEMA Review Council landed on the recommendations versus what the administration is going to push forward out the recommendations. And I just wanted to take a beat on this slide here to talk about what that means for the state of Maryland. A significant amount of the efforts that we undertake in emergency management are funded directly by and not only us here at the state, but every single jurisdiction in the state of Maryland, from Garrett over to Wacomico. And so it's incredibly important that we pay attention to what's happening with FEMA, because we have already seen out in Western Maryland this year a significant disaster go undeclared on the federal level. And what programs we have remaining after the FEMA Review Council and the changes they make at FEMA are going to have a really big impact on our communities and how smart with our sustainable growth going forward when we know that we have risks that we may have to take more control of ourselves at the state and local level. So with that in mind, just stay tuned to that. And our agency, I will promise you, we are going to do our best to continue to push out messaging and educate not only our sister agencies here at the state, but the local governments and the public on those changes so that everyone's aware, because the risks may not change, but our positioning and what we have to do to prepare for those risks very well may change in the near future, depending on those outcomes. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Secretary Flora. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Again, for members of the public, we are recording this. We will keep going because we just have so many great updates. And if you cannot stay with us a little bit longer, know that that recording will be posted on the Sustainable Subcabinet website for you to go back to if you desire, or to share with others that you work with. So next up, we have higher education. And I thank Secretary Rye for being here today to share what is happening over there and as it relates to sustainable growth in our state. Secretary Rye.
Thank you, Secretary Flora. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for bringing all of us together. In the interest of time, I will kind of move a little faster. Maryland Higher Education Commission is developing a 2026 to 2030 state plan for higher education. This is a statutory requirement. Our previous plan expires in 2026. Some of the main elements of this plan will be determining what is our present and future needs for post-secondary education and research. We are in a very disruptive environment. What are the present and future capabilities of our institutions of higher education? Then what are some of the short and long-range objectives and priorities for higher education, including how do we make progress in achieving these objectives, and how do we measure our progress? Vision for the plan is certainly, I will not read the whole thing, but again, an affordable and contemporary post-secondary education system that provides our residents access to the economy that we have in the state of Maryland. Let's go on the next slide. So these are the three main statewide goals that we are working. One is increase post-secondary attainment for lifelong success. So far, post-secondary attainment in our state is measured with how many residents have associate degrees or bachelor degrees, masters, or PhDs. So in that term, we have about 52% of our residents have associate degrees or higher. If you look at certain certificates that are offered for credit by our community colleges or four-year universities, we are at about 58%. We are in top 5 in the country in terms of attainment, educational attainment, post-secondary attainment in the state. So we'll be looking at this more broadly. What other certificates should be included? We want to be very inclusive. Everyone's contribution to our economy should be part of this. If you have a certificate in welding or machining, that's very important to our economy. We want to broaden this as we move forward. Second is ensure every degree and credential has value. As you know, artificial intelligence is changing a lot of things. So we want to make sure that every student who graduates or gets a credential from our institutions of higher education, they have an economic mobility due to that credential. Our credential should have value the day it is earned. So, for example, we will be attempting to embed artificial intelligence throughout our curriculum. So if you are a student of art, you generally understand or you have AI proficiency, but also AI mastery as it relates to art. How field of art is being impacted by the artificial intelligence. Second, we are also introducing lighthouse credentials. These are credentials that are very closely tied to the lighthouse sectors of our economy. That's life sciences, aerospace, IT, cyber, quantum, and artificial intelligence. So these are credentials tied to our lighthouse sectors, and also they are also credentials that will help us expand our lighthouse sector. It will give us economic competitiveness. Third, mobilizing post-secondary education, innovation, and research for competitiveness and public good. We are in an era where a lot of new companies will be formed, and they will be formed through the ideas, research, and innovation that's happening at academic institutions. You'll be very happy to know that in the area of artificial intelligence, Maryland institutions of higher education are one of the very best in the country. Johns Hopkins University, if you look at their work in AI-related work, defense and healthcare sector, amazing work is happening. Morgan State University is doing some amazing work in digital twinning with AI. UMBC is doing a lot of AI work in the defense sector, including digitization of supply chains and those types of things. University of Maryland College Park is doing some really amazing work. If you use ChatGPT today, so you should know that all this chat series uses large language models, LLMs. One of the most used LLMs in ChatGPT are written by the graduates of University of Maryland. So we have an opportunity. We are creating so many IPs. We have opportunity to create startups, supporting those startups so that we can grow the AI economy right here in our state of Maryland. If you look at these three goals, it helps us become more economically competitive in AI-driven economy, but it also helps us create an inclusive economy so that every resident of Maryland has access to post-secondary education that leads to at least an entry-level job in this economy. As I said, these goals will address sustainable planning principle, economy, and equity. Secretary Flora, you should be very happy with this. and I know you like to measure success in a very meaningful way. We will be following that. And then, we have the next 6 months of work ahead. So I want to end with this. This is a state's plan for higher education. This is being developed by the state. All major business industry groups are giving us advice, community colleges, four-year universities, public universities, private universities, they're all giving us input. A lot of different organizations like Greater Washington Partnership, Maryland Business Roundtable, a lot of community groups are also giving us input so that we can create a really comprehensive program that gives our residents access to opportunities, help us create an inclusive economy, and give us the economic competitiveness that we have and we need as we move forward. Thank you for the opportunity, Secretary Flora.
Thank you so much, Secretary Ryan, and thinking about how higher ed does intersect with everything we're trying to do around sustainable growth in Maryland. So next up,
can I just say
I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Can I just say that I have learned a lot from your work in another state and at another institution of higher education. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that, Secretary. We're going to keep rolling in the higher ed mode because we are going straight to the National Center for Smart Growth. And we have Dr. Howell, who heads that up, to give you an update on the work they're doing. Thank you, Dr. Howell.
Thank you. So we at NCSG do conduct research on all the things that sort of are percolating in this room right now. And so we're just excited to be here and learn more about how our research really kind of hits the ground and how we can influence the work that is going on. So next slide, please. So just a few quick things this year. We released with DHCD the Maryland Housing Needs Assessment, and it's statewide, and definitely check it out. It's kind of a big doc, but there's actually an executive summary that gives you the high-level findings. We also released the 2024 Maryland Commuter Survey with MDOT. And I guess just this past Monday, we had a webinar with MDP on adequate public facilities ordinances, and there's a sort of report that one of our students created that will come out with that. A couple of pieces that we're working on now is we are partnering a little bit with DHCD on some questions that they had about manufactured housing and how we might think about modular manufactured sort of offsite production to help to sort of improve affordability across the state. And then the other piece is that we've been working on the Purple Line with our partners who we also house the Purple Line Corridor Coalition. And we are working with folks along that line to stand up a network of sort of sectoral network of folks who are interested in problem solving at the building level to keep buildings affordable. And so our side of that is the data side and sort of trying to understand what's happening with both subsidized affordable housing, which we can find through federal sources, and unsubsidized affordable housing, which is requiring back to our previous conversation, a little bit of AI and modeling to really think creatively about how we proxy to sort of say, I'm pretty sure that this is affordable, so we can do corridor-wide investments and corridor-wide thinking rather than sort of saying, I think that building's affordable because of X, Y, and Z. We want to look across the corridor. So those have been some of our big things that we've been working on. But I would be remiss because there was a question in the chat about this if I didn't mention that we've got a university internal grant through agroecology, looking at the sort of relationship between open space preservation and energy production. So that is something that is coming hopefully this year. We'll have a report about that. We're partnering with our sister center, the Environmental Finance Center, to do that work, which is really exciting for us. And then the second piece, because there's also a question about this, is that we're starting to dig into questions about data centers because this has huge land use implications, as well as economic development, community development. And so we're really starting to dig into that. I've got a student right now who's working on a report that's sort of getting the lay of the land for what's at stake, what are sort of what's going on in this space. And then more importantly, too, what are other places doing to sort of regulate the impacts of that? And so that's kind of exciting, and we'll see where that takes us over the next year or so. But it's exciting to have folks in the center. I've got some really fantastic students and faculty who are doing really great work. Next slide, please. And then I would be really remiss if I did not plug our Partnership for Action Learning and Sustainability program, which is also housed at the center. So PALS is a campus-wide initiative that we connect classrooms to community through low-cost services. So we work with state and local governments, community-based organizations to provide low-cost project work on anything from we worked with microbiology on water testing in the Anacostia. We worked with geology on ground penetrating radar. We worked with planning on housing plans in the area, and really everything in between, business, info. We've got a huge university, and the great part is that we can connect across there to work with folks. And so if folks are interested, we are starting to look at the 26-27 school year. So if you're interested in a project, you can contact our PALS director, whose email is there at the bottom, or you can connect with me. I'm happy to make that contact and find faculty that can work with you. So we really do work with anybody, and we'd love to have a conversation about this. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Howell. We actually just recommended PALS to a locality yesterday. So
fantastic.
Great resource. And so we have two more agencies that have self-identified to want to share information with you. And the next one up is DBM, which I'm excited to have with us today. And Allison Verba is going to make that presentation. Thank you, Allison, for staying with us to do this.
My pleasure. Hi, good morning. I'm Allison Verba. I'm the Assistant Director of the Office of Capital Budgeting at Maryland's Department of Budget and Management. And I neglected to specify earlier during the roll call that I am here representing our new Secretary, Secretary Weissman. So for context, OCB is just one of many branches of the DBM tree, but our office plays a very unique role in facilitating sustainable growth in the state of Maryland. One of our core functions as an office is to develop the state's annual capital budget and 5-year capital plan. And as this slide shows, capital funding under the Moore-Miller administration totals $10.4 billion between fiscal years 2024 and 2026, which is our current fiscal year. And we have $11 billion planned for FY 2027 to FY 2030 as of our most recent 5-year plan that was released last January, which is in the process of being updated as we speak, as we are well into the FY 2027 budget development process. So the capital budget funds various projects and programs among state agencies that support all of the goals of the Sustainable Growth Subcabinet. But one particular facet of that is a process called Growth and Conservation Criteria Review. So this is a multi-agency review process that DBM coordinates in order to screen projects that have requested funding in the capital budget for various indicators related to sustainable growth. So we are looking for impacts, for example, to natural resource areas, proximity to flood zones, the inclusion in a priority funding area, as Chuck highlighted earlier in his map, just to better understand where these investments are being targeted so that we can help align our state capital investments with smart and thoughtful policy outcomes. So I'll note that although DBM coordinates this process, most of the work is done by participating agencies, especially MDP. So we thank them all for that. And over the last 3 fiscal years, DBM has screened an average of 141 projects to ensure that we're making these intentional investments across the state. Next slide, please. So next, I'd like to call attention to specific sustainable growth investments within those larger capital budget figures I shared on the prior slide, which encompasses funding to DHCD specifically during the Moore-Miller administration. DHCD programs consider sustainable growth policy in the project selection process. For example, many programs require that projects be located within a designated sustainable community. So as you can see from this table, enacted funding to DHCD totals $1.3 billion over the past 3 fiscal years, with another $1.4 billion planned for FY 2027 to 2030. And all of this funding aligns with the planning principles of economic growth and affordable housing, which are 2 very, very significant priorities of the Moore-Miller administration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Allison, for joining us and talking about how this very important aspect of capital budgeting relates to everything we're doing. Appreciate you considering the sustainable growth in all of that. So thank you. Next up, and our last update is from Department of Natural Resources, and Natalie Snyder is going to give you a verbal update on what DNR is doing in the realm of sustainable growth. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you, Secretary Flora. Yeah, and I'm glad to wrap up for us. It was mentioned earlier, the Maryland Beautiful Act set our 40 by 40 goals. So just to update on the year, as folks may remember, we reached the 30% target ahead of schedule in 2024. And to Wendy's question in the Q&A, I will say that both DNR and MDA conservation easements support the state's food supply by doing conservation easements on working farmlands. So that is an important easement piece of reaching our 40 by 40 goal. In 2025, we encumbered $40 million approved by the Board of Public Works for over 4,000 acres that are protected and preserved natural resources. And then our land preservation programs also protected over 10,000 acres in the calendar year 2025. So really great progress on our 40 by 40 goal. For the FY25 Green Space Equity Program is this first year of funding. We had 22 grants that were approved to nonprofits, land trusts, and local governments to preserve, create, and improve public green space in overburdened and underserviced communities statewide. So it's super exciting. As folks may know, we revised the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Agreement. This has been a long commitment of the states. And so by early this month, the Governor Moore and our 5 adjoining watershed states, the District of Columbia and the federal government, all approved a revised agreement that brings us all the way into 2040. It does build on earlier agreements and sets clear science-based goals and measurable outcomes that are focused on 4 key areas that align very well with sustainable principles. Clean water, thriving habitats, fisheries and wildlife, healthy landscapes, and engaged communities. And so the agreement includes 21 outcomes that have clear deadlines and major milestones to get us to where we need to be. And over the next year, we'll be working to devise specific management strategies as part of that. As a resource, I just want to point out that DNR has a new climate data and tools website. That website includes a centralized source of data available, different tools, and we also have a new tool that I just want to point out to people. It's the Maryland Coastal Flood Explorer. This is an interactive mapping tool. You can enter an address and look at current and future coastal flooding risks, sea level rise projections through 2120, as well as look at historical flood events. And then this serves kind of as an accessible platform for both residents and then planners and local leaders to incorporate into their planning and initiatives. And then finally, because CoastSmart is an activity here, I just want to say that we did finalize the first regulations of the CoastSmart program, and those are available on the CoastSmart website. So thank you, Secretary Flora, and everyone for attending.
My team muted me. Thank you, Natalie. Appreciate all of those updates. And I'm just checking to see if we can maybe add a couple of slides referencing what you just talked to the presentation before we post it. So we'll be in touch with you on that. Okay, we have made it through all the updates and nearly all of the agencies have provided those. And so if we could actually go to the next slide, which is our full list of subcabinet members. And I want to particularly circle back to Secretary Coker, who I know joined us after we did the initial roll call. And Secretary Coker, I just wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself and see if you have any comments for the group before we do a final closing. You're out there. There you are.
No, nothing to add. Commerce continues to advocate for sustainable growth, especially when it regards to the deep connection between energy and economic prosperity, but the emphasis is on sustainable growth, renewable sources of energy. But thanks for the opportunity to join in, and we'll continue to have this as a primary point of emphasis as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary, and thanks for joining us.
Certainly.
So with that, you see our list of agencies here, and some of the folks are in bold, some are in parentheses, but all the agencies are represented here still. Before we close out, I know we've all been monitoring some of the Q&A, and I just want to give 2 things in terms of just make sure reminder everyone from the public knows what we're doing. The presentation itself and the recording and a list of all of the Q&A will be presented to our Sustainable Growth Subcabinet webpage, so that'll be available to you all. But I just want to give a chance for any of the agencies that are represented, if there was any questions in particular that caught your eye or anything that you would like to respond to live, or any closing comments before I adjourn the meeting. Anyone out there? Okay. Wonderful. Well, we'll be reaching out and making sure you have that full list of Q&A and see if we can try to directly respond to any of those from the agencies that are relevant as part of our posting. And then I do want to call upon Secretary Day as our vice chair to see if you have any closing thoughts before we adjourn. If you're still with us.
Yes.
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Well, look, I don't have much to add other than, the council's or the subcabinet session before the public forum, focused on ways we're going to work together as a subcabinet and multiple agencies to deliver the best policy landscape in the next session. And I think the public would be interested in hearing that as well, that there's an incredible amount of collaboration. I think it's been evident for years now, but I'm really excited about the things that we're collaborating on legislatively, from a regulatory standpoint and programmatic standpoint in the months to come. So I think it's going to be a good 2026.
Great. Thanks, Secretary Day. So I will go ahead and close it from there. And just really tremendous thank you to not only all of the subcabinet members and agencies that took time to be here with us today to show full representation of how well we are coordinating, because none of these topics can be addressed singularity. They all have to be done in a very multidisciplinary way. And I really want to thank members of the public. I think at most we had at one point about 51 members from the public joining us, and we still have 36 out there with you. So I appreciate you all taking time to be with us here today. And we will push out to the attendees all of the information that I've been referencing. And I just wish everyone a really safe, healthy, peaceful holiday season, however you choose to celebrate that. And thank you all for your interest in sustainable growth in the state of Maryland, and know that we are all doing our very best to advance this agenda, grow our economy, but do it in a sustainable way so we can all treasure all of our resources also. And I see Secretary Day wants to get in a thought. Go ahead.
And thank you for your leadership. Appreciate
you,
Secretary Flora.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, everyone take care. I'm going to officially adjourn the meeting and wish you all the very best. Thank you all for being here. Take care.